How are you doing, Pat? We're good. Wait.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Chair, we can begin.
Good afternoon. It is March 22nd. It's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of Princeton Public Utilities Commission to order. First item on the agenda will be roll call. Madam Secretary, I'm assuming you've taken all the names.
I know.
Second item is the approval of the agenda as presented. Any questions, additions, or deletions? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. To approve the agenda's been made.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Move along. Item number 3, the election of chair and vice chair. Open for nominations.
I think you've done a great job. I think you should continue.
Thank you very much. But I forget which candidate that was said I'm not running. If elected, I won't serve. But this is what I'm going to do for this year. I think it's time to pass this mantle on. And I would recommend one gentleman take the reins for the next.
You don't want to do it?
No, sir.
Okay.
I think it's time for a change. And I think it's good for the community to see other people holding this in their hand and swinging the power over.
What is protocol typically?
There is a motion. It's up to you.
Can't make you do it, because I'll second that. Nomination.
For a variety of reasons, I can't do it this year.
Then we have to respect it.
Well, in that case, I'll nominate Rick Schwartz for chair.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I nominate Rick Schwartz for chair.
I would second that nomination.
Keep in mind I'm the junior here, or the sophomore, I guess.
Yeah, that gives us an opportunity to flog you during the first year. You'll do fun. Have good people around you. And you'll be good.
And I think you have to call, we have to call for any other nominations 3 times.
Yeah.
Or you can, the motioner can move a white ballot and to close nominations. Or move to close nominations
Oh,
without the
okay.
chair.
I'll move to close nominations.
Okay.
So then what is that? How is that?
Well, then it's gonna be a second.
And then
Second.
a second. And then you basically then take the vote and you've closed nominations and elected the nominator or the nominee as the chair.
So I'll second that officially. There's been a motion made to close nominations. Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
You forgot the discussion part.
So, well, that's just for nominations. Now we
Okay.
close the
We can
nominations.
discuss
Now,
nomination.
now we have the motion then for the. So then we can discuss.
Are you interested in all that?
And
Good reason to have a 5-person board now.
yeah. I mean, I'll take my turn, I think, but I think maybe in a couple of years, maybe the last year of my term. Is when I was thinking, but.
I'll do it. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that the tenures have.
No, yeah, not stepping on any toes.
So at this point, I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Schwartz be elected as the chairman of the Princeton Public Utilities Commission.
Okay, but we had that motion in second.
You had a
You
nomination.
had a nomination.
You had a
Oh, nomination.
nomination.
Oh, okay, all right.
So now it's
Well,
all,
I'll second that.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried with one abstention. I didn't even hear a mark.
I abstained from the vote.
Okay,
That should be in the record, please.
so, ergo, Mr. Schwartz. Pass on.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Doesn't it start next month?
No, you're on that. You're on, dude. Ready, set, go.
I pushed as hard as I could.
Go ahead. Oh.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Look forward to working with each and every one of you the best I can serve. Call anytime. Number three, the second part of number three is the vice chair. Dan, you've been the vice chair in the past. With Greg, if I may speak, that you have things on your platter that you
I do.
may not want that position.
It wouldn't be fair.
Okay,
Okay.
so then I would nominate Dan Erickson as the vice chair. As my first official.
So do we have to have a nomination process or can we just have a motion? Parliamentary. Oh,
I think technically you have to nominate
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then you. can
I'll remove my
vote again.
motion. Looking for nomination.
I'd like to nominate Dan Erickson to be vice chair of the commission.
Second,
Any other discussion?
if there isn't any discussion on it, then I'd like to have a vote on that action.
We have to, how do we?
So you need to move to close nominations.
Okay,
So you need a first and a second on that.
Okay, ready? Here goes. I'd like to make a motion to close nominations. I need a second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Oh, that's your. Jump in.
just kick me under the table. Okay, nominations are closed. Would anyone like to make a,
I'd like to make a motion to elect Dan Erickson to the position of vice chair.
second?
Motion's been made and seconded.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, same sign. Welcome, Vice Chair, Dan Erickson.
Glad we got through that.
That might be the toughest thing we do all year. Okay, number four, improvements of minutes from February 23rd, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 23rd, 2022.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes,
in the minutes, I just noticed this, and hopefully Kathy doesn't crucify me. It does say the general manager, but you're sworn elected PUC Commissioner Dan Erickson, that should be appointed. I just don't want any confusion in terms of.
which number? Keith?
It's in the minutes.
Right. where?
It's on the first page in the middle. I'm just suggesting that you may want to change elected to appointed, just for accuracy.
Yeah. I'll amend my motion to include that change.
So in order. Kathy, you good on that?
Yep.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, I'll second that.
Does that need a vote just for a correction?
Well, you do need to approve the minutes.
Right.
So that,
Well,
I amended it with that.
Yeah.
Right,
With that.
here's all second. Okay, so we have a first and a second to approve minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, same sign, motion passed. Public comments. This is the opportunity for the public to take their opportunity to speak with, go ahead, Vicki.
Hello, I'm Victoria Helene. I understand Jules Emmer is your liaison, so I see he's not here today, so if I can be recognized as a substitute liaison for him, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I am here, I'm part of the EDA, I've been part of the EDA since 2005, the city of Princeton. And we are working on the Pulse of Princeton right now. We're working on our strategic plan. We've been working on that for the past couple of months. And we're asking members of the community that live in the community and, you know, outside in our school district, people who are traveling through, like when they drop their kids off at daycare centers and stuff, we're kind of infiltrating the entire community to get feedback. It's 5 questions. You can do it online. It's coming out in your newsletter. It's coming in the mail, the Pulse of Princeton, where it can direct you to go online with the city website and just answer a few questions. There's 5 questions here. We don't need to know who you are, just where you're kind of located and the amenities that you appreciate in the community, and also where you think we should focus, have our focal point to enhance our community and make it a better place to live, work, and play. So this is the Pulse of Princeton. Please spread the word, and people can just get online, fill it out. It takes about a minute and a half, and we would really appreciate your feedback. Okay?
Thank you, Vicki. I'm not seeing anyone else here. Is there any emails or notes at all, and any comments, Keith or
No.
Kathy? Okay, thank you. Certification of accounts payable. Do we have any comments regarding that? I guess I do on just a clarification on 16, the 22 roof management agreement. Help me just walk through that. I know that we delayed the roof repairs.
Yeah, we still do annual inspections,
Okay,
and that's McDowell, and so they look at all
okay.
of them in the spring.
Did they, after the inspection, did they give any kind of a timing? I know that someone made the decision to say we should be starting to look at that.
Yes, I do have their report every year. With this just happening, I haven't gotten this year's yet.
Okay.
And that, when I do get it, I can forward that on to the commission.
Okay, so we're fine there then.
Would you like me to share that with the commission at that time, or?
Well, I think if, you know, it was recommended, what, 2 years ago?
would have been
Or to
last
do
year.
this year, and we waived that because nothing really changed.
We waived it because SIMPA requested it so that we could fit it within the SIMPA budget, so that and then they were.
Yeah,
gonna pay half of
okay.
that.
All right. It would still be just nice to keep tabs on, so it doesn't get buried over. I understand SIMPA involvement with it.
Okay, all right.
I also had a question on 26 transformers. How many does that represent? Jeremy? You know, and these I'm assuming are the big pole transformers?
No,
They're not.
where is it to?
26.
26.
I don't have that.
It's
So
29.8.
Solomon Corporation, Transformers,
19,000.
29,000.
That's the transformers for,
Is it?
I believe that was the ones for the apartment buildings,
Okay.
for the two, for the
On
apart.
First Street?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, those are the only transformers we've ordered recently.
and that's a billable? They get billed for that?
I have one question on number 56, and it's really not about the bill as much as maybe it's for Safety Clean Corporation, parts washer lease.
Yeah.
How much maintenance what kind of maintenance are we doing?
Whenever they take apart the engines, they degrease them. I mean, Scott, you can talk to it better than I, but it's for cleaning.
They come and clean it and then change out the solution. And keep track of that, dispose of, when they do transfer, change out solution, they dispose of that stuff.
Yeah, I get that. I just was curious of how much.
I believe it's twice a year that they come in.
How much maintenance are you guys doing on equipment where you are using a parts washer type maintenance? You know?
We're a fair amount, like I say, a lot of when we're in the engines and that type of stuff, yeah, we're in there quite a bit. It kind of depends on what project we're into, but when it is going, it does get, there's pretty dirty stuff when they're coming through there when we are using it, and it does get built up pretty good, so.
Okay, I was just curious of how much of that stuff we, subcontracted out or how much we doing in-house.
Yeah.
I just brought that up. I was, when I see parts washer, I'm going, how much maintenance we're actually doing in-house versus.
Dan, are you thinking at all to purchase rather than lease? Or
Well, I don't know about that. I don't want to get into all that.
all the equipment?
Management, you know, you want to track where this.
I think that's as much as anything is that the stuff is going to the right proper place that's getting disposed of.
Right.
And then change
Do you
it out.
guys use Safety Clean at all? No, but we farm out a lot of our bigger projects like that, so.
The advantage of using Safety Clean is they're certified to handle hazardous waste.
Right, no, I get that. I mean, I don't want to get into that. I was just, it just brought up the question of how
Yeah,
much.
when we're in the
are we doing
engines and
in-house?
that type of stuff, they're the parts washers a
Yeah,
good tool to have there to get stuff cleaned up and.
yeah. Like I said, I wasn't questioning the bill as much as, you know, what are we, how much
Yeah.
for that stuff.
It's mainly a power plant use.
Yeah,
Is that covered under our O&M or
I believe,
Simplot?
I believe so.
So it is a cost that we recover through Simplot, since most of the
Yeah.
engines are under the Simplot O&M contract.
Okay.
I will also just share with you that we have looked at more of an environmentally friendly parts washer. There was some problems, I think, with cleaning, how well it cleaned parts back then, to try to avoid the hazardous waste permitting that we have to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
So we have looked at that every once in a while, just to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. I think it needs to make sense.
Yeah. It just, like I said, it just brought to mind. The question. How much we- That's all I have.
There's no further communication or questions. Can I have a motion to accept the account payables certification of?
I'd make a motion to accept accounts payable as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Passes. All right. Forgive me, George, but I didn't introduce you, so thank you for coming today. Reports and presentations, number 7. With debt service reserve requirements, Kathy and George.
But if I may, I'd like to have Kathy introduce how we got to the point where George is here.
That's fine. That's why I mentioned Kathy and George.
Well, after we got our February statement from Northland Securities, I noticed that there's some funds that had, some bonds that had got moved into mutual funds. I sent out an email asking just a question and getting a clarification on it, and the bonds have been called in, right, George?
Yes.
So everything went into the mutual fund. So I'd asked about if they would be, the funds would then be refinanced and not set just in the mutual funds, and that's, this whole conversation started.
George Eilertson, Northland Securities, thank you for time on your agenda today. We've been, certainly the Princeton PUC hasn't been a regular issuer of bonds, which is just fine. I go back to working with previous boards beginning in 2010 and 2012. We helped with refinancing some of your existing debt or your debt at that time. And so I had an opportunity here recently to spend some time working with Kathy and Keith on your existing debt, kind of reviewing that, reviewing the funds that are tied to them. Maybe just a little refresher, something that you already probably recognize. When the city issues bonds, they're typically issuing general obligation backed bonds. So when they do street projects or a water tower or something, or you may be doing the water tower, but or other traditional city projects, they're doing general obligation bonds, which have the full faith and taxing power of the city behind those bonds. When the PUC issues debt, you issue revenue bonds because you don't have taxing power. So on the other end of the equation, there's purchasers of the bonds that want a little security for their debt. So they get a pledge of the revenues of your operations, But then they also get as a little safety net, what's called a debt service reserve, which is typically about a 10% of the amount of the principal that's issued on the bonds. So it's kind of that rainy day fund. If there's ever a shortfall, you can dip into that reserve. If you never need it, which is typically the case, it's there to help pay the ending payments on the bonds. So it stays intact as long as you have those bonds outstanding. So that's what Kathy, Keith, and I have been talking about is you're getting close to the end of 2 of your bonds. In fact, Kathy just sent in the payment for the final payment on the 2010 bonds. So those will be effectively paid off on April 1st. And then on the 2012 bonds, those ones have a final maturity in 2024. So after you make your April 1st of 2022 payment, there'll be 23 and 24 remaining for a total principal of $475,000 on those bonds. Originally, we had thought that we would present a resolution to you today to call the remainder of the 2012 bonds with some of that cash that you have in a reserve account. And so what we thought is let's present this today as informative first, answer any questions, and then come back with your direction, come back potentially next month, and then present that resolution. And just as how procedurally this works is even when you issue new bonds or pay off existing bonds, you have to take a step at the PUC and then the city takes a step as well, because you have the authority to issue the bonds and to pay off the bonds, and then the city needs to concur with that action. So when that time comes, if you'd like to pay off bonds, we would have a resolution for you to do so, and then the city would follow up after that. And I think it makes sense to have the PUC go first and then have the city go second. So we'll delay on that, but certainly address any questions. And certainly we had put together a memo for you just reviewing the debt service reserve funds that you have. You have the kind of 2 traditional open market bonds, the ones from 2010 and 2012 that I just talked about. Those ones, again, the 10s are getting paid off, the 12s have 2 more years. And then there's one that was issued in 2006, Midwest Consortium of Municipal Utilities loan that goes out to the year 2000 and I apologize, 2025 on that one. So that one's got a little bit more balance on it, and it's a little bit more challenging to pay that one off. That's a variable rate loan that MCMU issued. And then there were a number of utilities like Princeton that borrowed from it. And so you kind of need to jump through some additional hoops to pay that one off, but we can, and we'll look into that certainly in the coming years, or just have it go to maturity in 2025. But the 2012s is really what we're talking about today. That's the one with 2 more years left on it, $475,000 balance. And working with Keith and Kathy, you've got about $466,000 in reserve tied directly to that 2010 and 2012 bond. And so the action that we're looking at is potentially using that money and then a little bit more reserve cash or utility cash to pay off those 2012 bonds in the month of May. And so what you would be doing, and there's a sheet in your packets, it shows debt service to maturity and call. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this board. I'll hit the highlights. Is it would, by paying those bonds off early, you'd save about $18,000 in interest cost. So like Kathy indicated, you've got investments in an account that were tied to these bonds. Those investments have matured. And even with interest rates moving up, investment rates aren't that good on short-term money. So it's probably a prudent thing to consider paying off those 2012 bonds to save interest costs. So Again, what that would mean is that you would have to kick in an additional $10,200 from utility funds on top of what you already have in a reserve account. Does that make sense, board, that you got that money set aside specifically for the 2010 and 2012 bonds? Gets you about $466,000 is the balance. And then it would take a little bit more cash, $10,257 added to that to pay off the balance of the 2012 bonds. That again saves you about $18,000. So not huge money here. We're talking about saving, netting you about $8,000 to $9,000 of interest cost savings with kicking in additional cash. So at that point, you would only have the 2006 MCMU loan remaining. So a lot of numbers being thrown around at you, board. I certainly address any questions.
Kathy, do you have the payment amount for the 2010?
It'll be on the next month's accounts payable.
But you know that amount? When I look at the payables, I see item 31, 32. So for 26, I see that payment's 3703. But that's not the front of the line
That's
right
the
now.
MCMU bond.
And then item 32 is for the 2004.
That is the PFA bond in the water department. That's separate.
The last part.
It's separate. That's in the water department. That
Okay.
was an interest payment.
Okay, so on 2010A, do we know what that monthly payment is? That you just paid? I'm trying to come up with another formula in my mind. So getting that payment would help me. Payment that we just made.
Close out the loan.
You're thinking cash flow.
I'm coming from a cash flow
Yeah,
basis,
right.
so I need that payment
Well,
just to know what it is.
Okay. Correct me if I'm, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we pay interest into our debt service reserve fund. We only pay off principal twice a year, right? Once a year?
Principal once a year
Principal's
on
once a year.
April 1st and interest semi-annual.
Right.
4/1 and
So we transfer money internally to maintain our debt service requirements under the covenants. But we actually only pay on the loan once a year for principal. There's not a monthly payment.
Okay, so if we were to take that annual payment and the interest payment, what is that? And I'll divide that by 12 to get the number I'm looking for.
It looks like you're combined. So we've got, if we add together the 172 and the 20, you've got about $192,000 due on 4/1, final payment on that bond.
Okay, that's the amount due, but what's your, over the years when this first started, our annual payment is X and our interest is X. I'm looking for that annual exposure that we have each year, not the payout. Is it fair to say that each year it's 190,000?
It's, most bonds are structured with level debt,
Right,
so that more interest costs up front.
Yeah. Very typical.
And so that payment should be pretty reflective of what we've paid each year. About the $192,000.
So if I use that, okay.
Maybe this will help. If you go to our audit under the electric one, we look at 210A. And the 210A actually is split between electric and water. You'll see an outstanding amount. You'll see the principal payment that's due in the year ending 12/31/21, interest that's due 12/31/21.
So you're trying to get an idea of what the monthly cost between
Yep.
principal and interest.
Yep.
If you're.
So coming from a cash flow
Right,
perspective.
right. So like we pay this off. What are we gonna save for the year?
Right.
Payments.
And or instead of, I think if we continue down, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I also see a break fee of 20 to 47,000.
Right. And that's on the 2006 bonds. I appreciate the question. That's if we were looking at, so you're looking at the last paragraph in that.
Yeah, ultimately, what I'm going to ask the question after we get on the same page here.
Yep.
Is that if we're making this payment on the 2010 and we're making a payment on the 2012, if we acted as if the payment for 190,000 on April 1st continued, and we apply it to accelerate that payoff, does it help us not to have the exposure of a $47,000 penalty?
Good question. And actually I'm gonna say that I was ahead of myself with this memo. Let's disregard that last paragraph
Okay.
for our discussion today, because that last paragraph relates to the MCMU bond. And that'll be something that we'll talk about in the coming 1 to 3 years, I'd say, is that the paragraph above that is what we're talking about between the 2010 and 2012 bonds. The MCMU bond in the last one, I'll just say this, that it's one that if you could pay it off, if you had the funds, that breakage fee is because what they need to do is they've got a variable rate bond that was issued. And so they've got certain investments that they purchased tied to the market. And so depending on market conditions, it would take that much money, currently $47,000, to make the pool, the MCMU pool whole, if that makes sense.
To distribute to their investors.
Right, correct.
Okay. So you condense this paragraph and have taken it off. I'll condense my equation.
Yep.
So if we took the 190,000 that's being paid off shortly, and next month apply that to the 2012, instead of paying that off right away, is there a savings there? Instead of making one payment, we make two, or what is the ratio difference between the two methods?
And I hope that I'm addressing your question. If it's okay, I'll hand you this sheet. In your packets there.
I have it.
Oh, you've got it right there. Okay. So what were the bonds that from 2012 is you've got the ability to pay them off on any date. And so that's what we're recommending here is because the interest rate on those is 2.65 and 2.85%, is you got kind of a negative interest rate there between what you're investing at currently and what you're paying out on those bonds. So most of the money, short $10,000, you have. You need $476,000 to outright wipe those bonds out. You've got, what's our math here, Kathy? You've got 400 and you need 476. You've got 465,000 of the money in your reserve account.
Mhm.
You just need 10,000 more of utility cash that can, added together, will pay those bonds off. And like it says on the bottom, the last bullet point there, that saves you interest cost of $18,800. I hope I'm addressing your question. I
By paying that
apologize.
off.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
So Keith or Kathy, in that fund, what is our interest rate that we are getting on that to offset the 2.65 and 2.85?
It's a
Minimal,
minimum, well under 1%. Yes.
Okay.
Closer to zero than one.
You're just confirming what I see out there
We
too.
haven't
Yes.
found a better deal than you.
Okay. So, then I understand. So there really wouldn't be any savings to just take that money and not pay it off and make double payments. Got it, I think.
Yeah, if we could go out and currently this doesn't exist, But if we could take that money, $470 some thousand, and invest it at 3% or more, then you'd be better off sitting on it and then paying it down as you go. There was a time where you as a municipality could invest in mutual funds, but you can't do that anymore. So the math says you've got this higher interest rate that you're paying at and earning down here. And even with the Fed bumping up short-term rates, you might see interest rates on investments creep up a little bit, but certainly not enough to come anywhere near a push.
My experience is there's always a lag before the institutions right back. You've answered my question. I don't know if you guys followed with that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just curious, so how much less per year, and if we paid this off, those two bonds, how much less in principal payments will we have per year?
Well, again, if I can refer to the audit. You can see this is our amortization schedule for all debt outstanding as of 2020. And you'll see water fund and electric fund, you'll see principal and interest. In addition to the information that George is going through in the debt service to maturity, it does have it separated out between principal, what the interest rate, the coupon, what that interest dollar amount is. So you can see how we came up with these numbers. So that gives you, I think that's.
So if you take those two principal numbers, and if we applied those as if they weren't paid off to the 2006, that would accelerate the due date from 2025 to something less.
Well,
If that would be
2006 is-
allowed, it may
yes.
not be allowed.
Right, because you have got the breakage fee on the outside.
Yeah,
Yes.
which doesn't make sense to pay that. if it's done.
Not at this time, but it may in a year is what George is preparing us for, if that's an
Right.
option you want to.
Yeah, all very good questions. And so and I'm maybe jumping well ahead and I apologize, but the nice thing is you've got, and I know you've got projects that you're planning for. Keith and I have already been kind of working a little bit on that. The nice thing is you're dropping debt off before you're adding your new.
Right.
And so very likely, with the payoff of the 2012 bonds, like I'm talking about here, and then we can focus on those 2006 after the 12s are paid off. Likely try to get those retired, the 2006 paid off before you issue new debt. Just you got a clean slate then.
Yeah, and I would be all for that. I'm just looking at what the smartest way is on how we pay that off.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that we'll continue to look at that on your behalf. Not at this time, I wouldn't pay off that MCMU loan, is potentially in 23 or 24, because its final maturity is in 25.
Right.
The closer you get to the final payment, and if interest rates move up a little bit, that breakage free goes down, which is good. We actually, when I was working with previous boards, we looked at that same, trying to refinance the MCMU loan, because there's been periods of higher interest rates, lower interest rates from the borrowing side. And there's been times where the breakage fee was between $200,000 and $300,000. It just wouldn't make sense. If we could eliminate that, it would be a no-brainer to pay it off. But so again, we'll just keep an eye on that.
With the projects that we have on our plate, looking forward, when would you expect for a bond on what we've approved to move forward with?
We haven't gotten that far yet. So that's something that we're working as part of the rate study and working.
Right,
with-
realize all of that.
Yep.
So, but not even somewhat of a,
No.
okay. I agree, to have a clean slate. I mean, I wouldn't want to have, 8 different loans and go to the bank and say, give me another one. To have this stuff wiped off is be excellent. I'm just questioning what is the best way to do it.
Right. And board, the pretty straightforward initial answer to that is focusing on the 12 months. That's the one you need to kick in an additional $10,000 of utility funds. Today, like I said, we want to just present that in information only at this time. But follow your lead. If you want to do that at your April meeting, it would be procedurally, you just pass a resolution. We notify the paying agent, who is who you make your payments to, and then in 30 days, you can pay off the bonds. So we'll follow your lead. If your direction today is yes, work with Heath and Kathy on getting this together for our April meeting, we can certainly do that.
Questions?
I guess my question is just procedural. Do you need us to say, okay, guys, get on this? Or are you looking for a motion to say, let's?
Not a motion yet. George, Kathy and I really got into the meat of this discussion on Friday. We wanted to get this information in front of you three. Make sure that, Kathy's been asking some really good questions. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable and completely understand everything that George is doing, because he's way above me on this stuff, so a little bit of extra explanation is going to help me. We wanted to bring it up in case there was anything that you guys saw that we should be aware of. Otherwise, yeah, the thought was we would continue to just move forward, put together a proposal, a draft resolution, and present that at the next commission meeting. If that gets approved, then Michelle's already been prepped to do a concurrent resolution with the city council. Hopefully actually, I think you said the city might be doing something in sometime coming up here, kind of similar to this. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
common within
yeah, I mean,
governments, is all I'm trying to say.
George and Tracy, before Tracy left, had some conversations. I managed to get my head, or I'm working on getting my head wrapped around the positive side of the city dollars. And once I get through a few other things, I'll be sitting with George and trying to figure out the negative side of the city dollars and seeing if we can find some debt of our own to pay down. Because we do have potentially projects coming forward that we're gonna need to figure out how to fund.
So the idea is, if at the April meeting, the commission passes a resolution to call on the bond, then that next city council meeting, we would have a concurrent resolution for the city council to approve. Once both those things are done, we let George know, and he just pulls the trigger. It gets done. So that's our process.
So through that process, we'd be looking at 2 to 3 months with final payment.
Well, you said 30 days after.
Well, it would be, you would consider approval at, I know I wrote this down, it's your April meeting, towards the latter part of April when you meet.
Yeah.
And then once the city approves, which likely would be that same week.
Let me look. Let me look.
Once they both approve it, it would be 30 days once both resolutions are approved. So end of May.
I just think the only thing would be work out the budget.
Well, we just come out with cash reserves.
Just take it out of the budget.
Yeah.
I guess the question I was asking is, do you need a motion to pursue this so that at the April meeting, the numbers that you all come up with, we say yes, no, maybe we don't need them?
No, unless you guys are saying, well, just stop, we're gonna keep putting the information together, and, we're not ready with a resolution just yet.
This is informative to us, and
So,
the next one would be.
right, so we will keep working on this, unless you say no.
I would strongly suggest keep working on it.
So to
Yes.
confirm the schedule, your next meeting is the 27th of April. We do have a meeting on the 28th, so
Okay.
basically it would be boom, boom, and then if I can't see the council not approving a concurring resolution, Then George would be informed on the 29th.
Yeah.
And then May 1st or May 2nd, and then 30 days after
Yeah.
that.
So first part of June, you'd pay the debt off.
Yeah,
It'd be a little bit less, there'd be 1 month less of accrued interest on the old bonds or existing bonds. So I show 18,800, it might be, a few $100s less than that. But nonetheless, still worth it.
Workable plan.
Still looking at 18,000 change that we save by.
Right.
getting rid of that, Our John.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a quick question.
Vicky?
So from my understanding, well, the city does the GO bonds. And so these bonds, are they called the revenue refunding bonds? Is that what the PUC does?
The PUC does revenue bonds, yes.
Revenue bonds, okay. And then one last question is MCMU, is Minnesota,
Consortium of Municipal Utilities.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, back in 2006, they issued a $50 million bond. And then you were 3.4 to 3.6 million of that. And so a number of other utilities throughout Minnesota were borrowed from that pool as well.
Bigger picture.
Mhm. Well, thank you for your time and questions.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
for coming in.
So then, as I look at this, we've covered all of 7, 1 through 4,
Mhm.
correct?
yes.
Okay, next is simple reports.
All the next reports are in your packets like we do every month.
Yep. Any questions on those, anyone? C, financial reports, income statement, balance sheet, trial balance, cash reserve. Questions on those? Yeah. B, ED, and ACH reports. Anything on that? Number 8, updates. Electric department.
Yes, the other day, we had a bad meter socket just north of the office here. It had been getting a little warm, one of the tabs in the meter socket were bad. We had a local electrician come in and fix that. We've been doing some tree trimming. Past couple of weeks, the sunken ship, we had delivered some parts out there. That project is moving forward. The solar project at Anytime Fitness is now up and generating. Today, they had their final inspection today. So that is up and generating. We had to shut the cell tower up north of Walmart off a week and a half ago. They had to do some maintenance on that. Of course, meter reading, some MMUA training. And yeah, the AMI meter lead times are still up in the air. So we're communicating with them every 2 or 3 weeks, trying to get that updated. So first 3 departments here are marching along progressively. So yeah, that's about it. And then just normal everyday stuff, service orders, that kind of thing. Yep.
Any questions? No?
Joe, when you say meter socket, you're talking something residential.
Yep, that the meter goes in. Yep, it just had gotten bad, I think, from over time. Previous owner, there were quite a few of our old plastic tabs we used to slip over the socket with the disconnect. Previous owner, which I think it was just flat oil, back of the meter actually started to melt. So
That's in place.
yep, so yeah, we had a new socket put on there and they were out for 1 hour. So yeah, which was good because they were actually, I think they were getting ready to list the house. So they were very thankful. And we were, in fact, they had called a friend of theirs that was an electrician. They came up and got them back up and running Saturday. And he actually called Travis yesterday and thanked us for coming out and getting a different electrician because he was just flat out too busy this week to get in there. All of the help that we gave him, getting somebody else lined up, getting them up and going.
So when you have something like that occur at a residence, is that something that AMI is picking up? Get that?
Yeah, well, in fact, it was, that's a house that was out for like 4 hours. Well, it reported that it was out for like 4 hours. And I went there the next morning and checked the socket, and it didn't look anything bad. You know, I didn't take the meter out because, you know, shut the house off, but you know, we're looking for possible tampering or anything, but there weren't any tracks there and stuff. And technology, every once in a while it glitches and hiccups. But it did flag it as an outage this weekend, but then they called and said the lights were flickering this time. So yeah, it's been showing up. It's been working. So yeah.
Plus for AMI.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Excellent. Heat, water, and power. Scott?
Water side, there's just after our last meeting there, we had the World Water Conference. Good information there. I think it's coming up. More coming on that is the lead and copper service line inventory that we're working on. There's a bunch of stuff coming in with that. Get some more information put together here for you guys on that, just to kind of keep you. That's a new change in the EPA or update to the EPA Safe Drinking Water Act. So, we did have another AMI there. We had a outside faucet that was either got turned on accidentally on new construction or was froze and unthawed, and we were able to get that shut off with the builder. We contacted them on that. That showed up on the system as a leak report tape end of it. We were able to catch that to get that shut off before it ran for longer. Monthly bag T sampling, all went good. Filter testing, static levels. Working on some equipment maintenance. Gathering some information, working on some of the new development stuff here. It's in the works throughout town. Power plant, or the generator, treatment plants, maintenance, and some chemical lines and some heating and stuff in there. So keep in there. Power plant side, with visual inspection of the catalyst in preparation for the emissions testing that's coming up starting tomorrow. So we've got that coming up this week. We run for 3 days, 2 to 3 days, depending on how the runs go. A circulating pump that they did a rebuild on it, and then we had Chris Water was in and monitoring the jacket water for the engines. But I had the water treatment.
Any other questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. See a Princeton update. Michelle, please.
So we're still looking for a finance director. We had posted the job prior to Teresa leaving. We got 3 applicants. They're not quite what we're looking for, so we haven't done interviews yet. The job's been reposted to the League of Minnesota Cities website. Keith has offered to post something as soon as I get it over to him on the MMUA site. I've put a posting out on Indeed, and I was able to invite 3 potential candidates. We'll see if they accept my cordial invitation or not to apply. In the meantime, we've divvied up the day-to-day finance activities between the accountant and myself. So I'm handling some of the part of the payroll stuff that relates to HSA contributions, uploading that information. I'll be doing the monthly reconciling of the city's books, and I get to have the fun job of data entering all the receipts. Just fine and dandy as long as I remember to, on the liquor store receipts, we have to do what's called a split receipt, so all the transactions end up on one receipt. Yeah, I kind of forgot to do that the first time around, so delete several entries and redo them. So good learning experience. So now I have a big sticky that says, it's a very bright fluorescent yellow sticky with red lettering that says split with an exclamation point. So I So I can remember, because, you know, we do it only a couple times a week or maybe once a week. And you kind of forget those things. So I am, however, going to the council on Thursday. I've reached out to about 3 talent placing companies to get some pricing on some temporary help for the audit prep. I just don't have time or understand the language. I really don't want to, at my advanced age, I don't really want to learn another language. And so I'm gonna see if we can get some temporary help in for March or April and May. Thank God our audit got pushed out 2 weeks. So we're doing that. We've been working, Heather Brooks, our community development manager, is working on a variety of grants for various things, and had some interest in the business park. We just got a letter of interest on a fairly significant chunk. We need to kind of take a look at that. So more news to come later. I'm still in a holding pattern with the federal EDA grants. I've pushed and prodded and poked through Congressman Stauber's office, and I'm getting the same message. It's still under review, and I'm about ready to go to Chicago or wherever this guy is and strangle him, but I don't think the city will allow or authorize out-of-state travel, so I guess I'll have to just keep on waiting. So we have 3 intern positions, a splash park recreation intern, finance administrative intern, and a recreation and marketing intern position that we're hiring. We've gone through Handshake, which I guess is the big interconnected job posting board for institutes of higher education. So you can basically go into Handshake, and then you can pick all the colleges that you want to advertise your positions with. So we've actually been pretty successful for interns that way. We have an employee that's leaving, one of our general maintenance staff in Public Works. So we posted that position, and we told Bob I was very jealous because he got 24, 26 applicants for that position. So yeah,
That's great.
it is great. And some of them look pretty promising. So so I think he'll have a good selection. The city is participating in the Chamber's hiring fair on April 6th at the Riverside Mall. We are still looking, we haven't really started advertising for summer help yet. We have splash park attendants and summer help in Public Works, and then hopefully also maybe we'll stake ourselves a couple of more part-time liquor store clerks, because we just had another one resign, and we had a vacancy or a space that we wanted to fill, and so anyway, so we're looking for that. So we're trying to all the different ways to try to find some people to fill spaces. So, and other than that, it's just we met. Every time, we're getting some interest on development. So whenever we do get interest, I always make sure that the PUC staff are in the room and talk about stuff and give developers or potential developers input from a electric and water standpoint. So that's all I got.
Is there a packet yet created, or just a verbal communication
What do you mean?
for?
Oh, no, we haven't had a chance to do the whole packet yet. We just, basically, when someone approaches us, like, yesterday we met with the developer that is a potential redevelopment project, I basically just, say, hey, can you meet like Monday after our department head meeting? And then we just have everybody together, and right now, a lot of them are just at the a very preliminary stage, meaning I have a sort of a form study of a building and I kind of have a preliminary agreement with the landowner. Can you talk to me about what are my potential things to think about in terms of, zoning requirements, electrical, other site constraints, and then they have to actually go back and do homework.
Right.
And then we'll meet again with them probably before they actually get into the whole process. And then once they get to that point, then I'll just, as of right now, I just work up a nice big email that kind of walks them through the process. So,
I can see where a packet, just questions that I've asked back and forth. If it's a living packet, so things change so much, and you constantly.
well, and that's the other thing too, is that every project is so different.
Yeah.
Is it a redevelopment project? Is it a commercial project? Is it a residential project? Do they want tax abatement? Do they want to try to do TIF? Is it something completely new and unusual that we've never?
Yeah.
And so sometimes just doing something that's sort of site and developer specific is it's just a lot easier. And then you're tailoring it to that particular request. I mean, a packet is great, except that it's going to be pretty generic and it's going to be pretty, broad brush, as opposed to something that, you've talked to a developer, you've created a relationship, you've had some conversations. You can use that sort of more personalized approach to reiterate what you've already talked about.
Right.
And it's, specific to their particular project. So, and frankly, right now, I'd rather do a more personal email because I need like more sideboards than I can build right now on my plate. So.
Any questions for Michelle?
Oh, I was thinking, the cookie cutter packet kind of approach works great a few times, but, with the diversity of things coming in, probably easier to have a face-to-face first go around.
Well, we did what you're talking about when I worked in Elk River. I mean, we did a process sort of manual, partly for staff, but also to be able to hand to developers when I worked in the city of Elk River. But, in the city of Elk River, the city boundaries are fairly large and it's fairly cohesive. I mean, here we're talking about potential annexations and different utility companies that provide, electric, and other things. So it's really, I personally think that a more personalized, site-specific, developer-specific approach is more appropriate here, just because we have a lot more moving parts than, say, a city of, 47 square miles and so.
Even if it contained, a soft letter, welcome to Princeton, and thank you for considering us.
Yeah.
Here's the list of names and phone numbers that you may need.
Yeah.
That's something so they can walk out with, some.
Yeah, and we might do just maybe a one-pager that way, include contact.
Costs, that updated sheet that was done, I believe.
Yeah, so we'll get to it, just not right
It all
now.
takes time.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of staff changes in the last year,
Yeah, you have.
and good ones, very good.
Thanks, Vicki.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll pay you the $10 later.
How much for lunch?
Change is always tough, but somehow generally it's for the better.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's just once you get through your storm. We'll
Yeah.
get you a platter instead of a plate.
Yeah, maybe I need a platter.
Any other questions for Michelle? Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Butcher, General Manager, please.
Yeah, on the admin side, our deposit notifications have gone smoothly. In February, we had about a 30% response rate for customers that are eligible for deposit returns under our new policies that were approved at the end of last year. Those have been mainly renters, but that's, like I said, it's been going smoothly. We're taking the opportunity to also find ways to streamline our deposit return process. And so the office staff are working on that. We've also been looking at better utilizing the service order system within Power Manager. That's going to allow us to better track customer needs, what tasks need to be done, as well as how we're allocating our resources. Chrissy is also looking into, right now we're using the PO box. We're looking at perhaps discontinuing that and just using a standard mail delivery in the office going forward. On DSM, the energy efficiency stuff, we do have a bunch of big check pictures scheduled for April 5th to highlight activities going on within the community. Last month, we issued rebates to Christ Our Light Church and the school district. Nancy, our ESR rep with SIPA, has also provided 2022 forms and display materials to local appliance dealerships. We also did an informal audit for the pizza bar on their request. Also, I got some of the numbers for 2021. Last year, we issued about $78,000 in rebates, which saved our customers about $161,000 in utility bills. That ended up reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 944 tons. Just to let you know, from if you look at the SIPA membership as a whole, SIPA paid over $3.2 million in energy rebates, reducing CO2 emissions by about 32,000 tons. Or carbon dioxide. So it just gives you kind of an idea of the impact our energy programs have. On the regulatory side, we did apply yesterday for a $2,500 grant from the Minnesota Department of Health through their Source Water Protection Plan implementation grant. That would fund an educational site that we could develop and our treatment plant 1 to help educate the public during tours. That helps us meet one of our wellhead protection plan implementation goals. There's also another grant opening on April 1st that I will be able to use to help at least partially fund our potential contaminant source inventory. That should be about $1,200 that I'm hoping we can get for a grant there as well. So we're trying to leverage grants as much as we can for our activities. In terms of the community, applications for the scholarship program are due April 6th. Like last year, I'll send out the essays to the commission without names and addresses, just so it's a blind review, tally the votes, and then whoever the local winner is, will move forward on to MMUA for their statewide competition. We will be able to announce the winner, the local finalist, let's say, at next month's meeting on April 27th. So I'll be in communication with the commission on that. We do have a connector insert. Kathy had handed those out prior to the meeting with the focus on water issues. Again, focusing on wellhead protection and preserving our groundwater, the ACA credit, and the service fees. The April insert will be a flyer focusing specifically on the service fees. After we did a Facebook post on our service fee news release, we had several customers calling with questions. It actually was really nice, really positive. I'm glad to say that customers are calling us directly instead of getting all their information from Facebook, which isn't always the best place to get it. Not at all. Yeah. So they've been calling us, which is really nice. And the office staff have been having very positive conversations and explaining how the program is going to work. So I'm very happy with that. We also worked on the IT side, just some internal stuff, working on developing a joint calendar with the Black County Historical Society, just to avoid any miscommunications and avoid any potential double bookings of this room. Since we had to move the commission a day earlier, I just want to make sure that everything's available. We are doing email outage notifications now on all the on-call phones to help coordinate a response. We're also working on a way to try to come up with some sort of visual map for the on-call folks so that they can triage outages as they occur. So we're working more and more on those kind of communication and IT capabilities. And I already mentioned, we're using the service order process in Power Manager to track individual customer activities and ensure problem resolution. With Simple, I just want to give a reminder that the Simple board meeting will be here in Princeton on April 13th, starting at 9 a.m. I have asked Michelle to invite the mayor to give some opening remarks. Commissioners are also invited to attend. It starts at 9 a.m. We usually wrap up about noon. Afterwards, I was thinking of just offering a tour of the power plant to some of the other Simple members that might be interested. For the MMUA Government Relations Advisory Committee, I continue to sit on that and just monitor what conversations are going on at the Capitol. Wanted to just confirm, is everybody on the commission getting the Capitol letter from MMUA? Are you? Commissioner Schwartz?
I believe I am.
And Commissioner Hanson? Okay. I just want to make sure you guys are getting that as well. And I'll look into that distribution list.
Just later, I just got a email from Nancy
Okay,
to my home address,
okay,
so make sure that she's got mine.
yeah, I will.
I mean, this is not a big deal, but
Yeah.
just
Well, I just want to make sure that the communication is open with everything. Wellhead protection plan, I already mentioned the grants. WSB has also started doing some data collection. They're not going to start on the inventory until we learn if we win the grant, because you can't retroactively fund activities when you get a grant. It's always you get the grant and then you do it. They will disallow expenditures that are done prior to the grant issuance. So we are waiting on that a little bit. However, that's not going to affect our timeline. We still expect to be done with the wellhead protection plan by April of 2023. And then just continue to work with the city on just some minor information requests, making sure that we're working together to better serve both individual customers as well as the community at large. Kind of just my big overview. Anybody has any questions?
I just have one.
Yes.
The scholarship program, do you guys go through the Princeton scholarship organization, or do you just do it yourselves?
Well, I do notify the school district,
Okay.
so it's included in
their
theirs.
programming.
Last year, I didn't get any applicants through the school. That was 2 years ago. I didn't get any. But yeah, I do coordinate with the school district so that they give that out with all the other information.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I know the programming, you don't get to homeschool kids, are they capable of applying for this or no? No.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's for anybody whose parents or guardians are customers of ours, so they would have to be an electric customer. But it is for post-high school college expenses.
Yeah.
So, as long as they go to college or even a 2-year tech school or anything, any postgraduate education, it can be used for that. So we have posted it on Facebook, on Twitter, on our website. We try to get the word out as much as we can, but if there are other avenues I should be exploring, please share.
Yeah, so the applications actually come to you and then you notify the school of who you appoint.
So, yes, we get the applications, the commission selects a finalist. The finalist, because for the MMUA scholarship, it can only be one applicant per MMUA member. So we pick a finalist and submit that to MMUA, and then MMUA has a first, second, third, fourth place scholarship. Last year, it was actually the Princeton candidate that won first place. So that was great. It was $2,000. So we would do that same thing. Whoever the local winner is, that's who our submittal to the statewide competition.
Okay, good, that's wonderful. So I know some of the scholarship programs locally don't include homeschool kids.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, our biggest thing is just, it's gotta be an electric customer.
Yeah, are going out to college, yeah. Yep, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Not, on to, onto the business. A tour discussion. Mr. Butcher.
Yes, sir. Memorandum 22-09, which is in your packets, the commission has an interest in doing a tour. Last time we talked about conducting that on our meeting date of April 27th, after we finish our normal business. I went through and tried to come up with a calendar of how that might look. I've also secured a mini bus rental through TriCap that we can use to help shuttle participants to the various locations. The thought was that the minibus is available at 3:30. So if we wrapped up here at 3 with our regular business, we could do a walkthrough of the storage areas, the plant substation that is here, the power plant, the office, as well as water treatment plant 1. The board and any members of the public that want to join us would be able to board the bus at 3:45 outside of water treatment plant 1. We would then head up to the north substation. We could get out quickly, just show the equipment that we have there and explain how that substation works. Do a drive-by of the north water tower as we head down to the south substation and the middle water tower. Again, we can show the facilities we have there. Then swing over to water treatment plant 2 and do a drive-by of the south water tower, returning everybody here by 5:30. That's, I'm hoping we can get a lot of the explanations and conversations done during the drive. If we go through it quickly, we could finish sooner, but I did, like I said, I did secure a rental until 5:30 through TriCap. I did extend invitations to the mayor and the city council. That is kind of the itinerary that I came up with, and just wanted to give some feedback.
That's fine.
Okay, so I will continue to pursue that for our next meeting.
Thank you.
I hear you say Red Lobster will be waiting for us when we get back.
And okay.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I don't think that's allowed.
Possible. Just a bit.
Okay, number 9, item B, city council joint meeting discussion.
Yes, sir. At the last meeting, we did approve to hold a joint meeting, to get it on the calendar, to have a joint meeting with the city council on May 5th, if I remember correctly.
Sounds all right.
And so all we simply did was set aside that time, put it on our calendar. I guess I was just kind of curious if the commission wanted to have a discussion at this time about topics, or if that's something, Michelle and I haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. I just wanted to give an opportunity for the feedback. Prepare for that meeting.
Yeah, and that should start at 4:30, correct, Michelle?
Correct.
Vicky, do you have any thoughts on a topic?
Or
The joint meeting,
So, what time was that?
4:30, it's the work session.
well, I was gonna talk to Keith after the meeting about, it came to my attention through the Oaks, where I'm working with them as a liaison, that water bill or sewer bill is double for water. And so I need to find out why that is. So that might be something we could all know about.
Okay. Okay. Well, generally speaking, the sewer rate is double the water rate.
Yeah.
So we charge, I guess when you get to the upper limit, the upper tier, it's $5.95 per 1,000 gallons. And the city's sewer rate right now is $11 per 1,000.
Okay, she's thinking that, okay, let's say I have using 5 gallons of water, but that 10 gallons are going into the system.
No, it's because the rates.
Okay, so we need to explain that to her.
Okay.
Her name is Capital.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'll get a hold of her. Having trouble trying to figure this one out.
Okay.
When she showed me her bill, and I told her I would try to get some information or maybe send it over or call.
Yeah.
So let's give her some direction on that. Thank you. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. You know, she's been doing this for years.
So item B, just for clarification, that's May 5th, 4:30 at City Hall.
Yeah, yes.
I guess I would like to, just talk about what doing the next 3 years, 5 years. Instead of, the scenarios, how that comes in, what we do. Commercial rates possible, things like that. We can talk about things that we've talked about with the
So I got rate study, you want to spend some time on the capital plan?
Yeah, I think we can go over some, just kind of big picture stuff.
Okay.
Just the council person. That I get questions about. This new industrial park, like, what can we do to help, like, with central discounts, maybe time.
Okay.
Things like, yeah. Potential commercial clients. That's good. Just a recap of what
Kind of like where we're headed, what's our pathway going forward.
we're going forward, a little recap too of what we've done in the last year, So what you've got put together already, so.
Yeah, the year in review stuff.
Yeah, I think that would be good for the city, the entire city council. I would start out with what we've done and where we're going.
I would agree with that comment.
Yeah. That will make for a long enough discussion.
It would, I guess, I guess looking at it from the other side, is there anything that you guys would like to hear from the city council? Any information that you might find valuable as we move forward?
My response is I would always be open to positive communication. And this may be a time to talk about new topics, as have you ever thought of this coming from the city council? If there's ideas floating around, things that we have fixed and replaced or improved on, that's where we've been updated. But if there's something that we aren't addressing, that's a positive for the city and for council and for the commission. I would always be open for that. It may be something we aren't even considering that you guys maybe reference, but never makes it here. I don't know if there's anything, but that's a great point.
Well, I mean, in the past, it's always been communication, so maybe we should just subject of communication. How's it going? So that's something that seems to come up over and over. So maybe that's resolved itself.
I think Keith, you're doing a very good job connecting with the city and being there for these council meetings and keep giving us updates, and it's just fantastic to have this. And I've been working with the city for 20 years, and you are very consistent. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you find it valuable.
Yeah, it's very valuable.
I can speak for the commission that we appreciate it too.
Good. Glad people find it of value.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Your pocket, not mine, right?
While we're passing out kudos, as the
retiring chair, I'd like to, that's what my thanks for Mr. McPherson being here this last year. Has been a treat to have someone here with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, always forthcoming. Get updates, we get questions, we get answers. It's been, like I said, it's a treat to be able to have a really smooth working relationship with the working people at the city. So it's a good thing. Thank you very much.
I agree, it's been much less abrasive, to say the least.
Very nice volunteer, those updates. Otherwise, I'm not sure how we would access them.
Yeah, we have to stay connected. I mean, we are working together there.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, for a while, you guys didn't have that, and I keep was horrified. You know, that support was not there for 2 years. It's, so I'm glad we're back on track as a community and we're together and it's fine. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we don't want to go there, but one of the things, I know a lot of cities or PUCs also have the sewer underneath the public utilities. That's a discussion that I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, or just an idea. But, it's something that we want to maybe talk about, whether it is a good or a bad idea. Take that.
I say, let's start with what we have.
Yeah. I just think, you know, a lot of times when projects are going, it's just, it works. It seems like the sewer and water projects are gonna do steep, everything's got to get work together. And just to me, it makes sense to, you know, one less redundant. That's why maybe a discussion. I don't know why it was done that way in the first place. I don't know if anybody on the city council would have that answer either. It's probably so long that they
Yeah,
set it up.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, good. I've got a list here. And again, you know, as we, you know, finish this meeting up over the next month, if you have other ideas, please share. If you have questions that you'd like me to forward on to Michelle in case there's something we want to have the council think about, we can do that as well. Otherwise, yeah, I expect Michelle and I will work together and put together an agenda for both boards, well, the council and the commission to, you know, make sure everything lines up. Let everybody talk. Okay, thank you.
Moving on to C, ACH discussion. Kathy and Keith.
Yeah, just was going to give an update. We're receiving. It's been nice. We have got a lot of interest in the ACH process. We've been receiving approximately 2 to 3 applications every workday in the last month for ACH. Had a couple that didn't go through this last time, so working to figure those out. An additional benefit too, just so that the commission is aware that at the same time people are signing up for ACH, we're also getting them to sign up for paperless billing, which obviously helps reduce our postage costs. And
This is where you're supposed to stand up and cheer, but
It takes us all,
so,
not just me,
that's how that project was progressing.
but I am cheering inside.
hang on a second.
When new customers sign up, are you getting to go straight to ACH pretty easily then?
I guess I don't know.
There was only a couple new ones,
Yeah.
no brand new customers. Most of them were existing customers.
We are finding though that more and more, we spent a lot of effort in the last year to put our applications online and make them signable PDFs. We are actually getting more and more people to actually sign up for service electronically. So they're actually not even coming into the office as much. That means I think we do want to think about some of our messaging and communication because we're not necessarily getting that face-to-face
Right.
that we may have in the past.
that.
Wherever you can
But
say.
it's making the signups so fast and
Yeah.
easy that,
Yeah.
you know, they just send in their information and we switch it over and we keep moving. So we really done a lot in our internal operations to make that easier.
Cool.
Great news, great news.
Now, what does ACH stand for? I think you need to go back to it.
Automatic clearinghouse,
Yeah.
it's how the banks talk to each other, basically. So you can just do a financial transfer from one checking account to another checking account. Since it's not credit, there's not credit card fees associated with it. It's simply an electronic transfer. If you think about it, when you fill out a check, you know, you got your routing number and your account number at the bottom. That's all banks need to move money around. So that's what we're using when people sign up. And then it's scheduled to occur on the billing due date or the next business day if it happens to be on a Saturday. And then it's just for the full amount. It's automatic. People don't have to think about it. They don't have to write a check. It just comes out on a very regular basis. It's nice for us because, yeah, there's no transfer fees associated with it. It's an automatic payment, so it reduces late fees, it reduces arrearage for our customers. And boy, if everybody did it, it'd be great for us. But you know, people do like to pay in different ways, but it's something that does have a benefit for us because it helps us keep rates low because it is so easy for us to handle those transactions. Keep in mind, we have about almost 2,800 different accounts that we serve every month.
Yeah.
So if you're processing 28,000 different transactions, you want to find ways to streamline that and make it as economical as possible.
Okay, so it just automatically happens. And so it means ACH means what again?
I want to say
It's automatic clearinghouse.
yeah, automatic clearinghouse.
Okay.
What we were experiencing, Vicky, was an annual cost of about $17,000 taking the credit card. So we were paying that as a service. And that number was just too high for us to accept. So we introduced a charge for taking the credit card of 2.5. Is that correct?
2.5%, and we're still looking at a May 1st launch date.
Yeah, did that even cover it though, the 2.5?
That is the fee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But in doing so, we're also saying you don't have to use a credit card, but you can use the ACH that doesn't cost you or us anything. So that's the push to go to, that's our preferred payment. Of course, you can use any way you want, but now, starting May 1st anyway, when we want to kick it off is there will be a charge if you use your credit card. But we gave another alternative of payment.
Yeah, and it's good for both entities. Saves money for both.
So I have a question for you. Do you know what the advantages of paying your bill with ACH?
You get a 3% reduction in your water
Okay,
bill.
I was just curious.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. but
Well,
they
I'm
take
just, you
less.
know,
Yeah.
because the fact that we had a small fee made the paper, but the 3% discount for paying the ACH did not make the paper.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I know, it's
Yeah.
like, well, I guess bad news sells papers. And
Yeah, you
good
sell
news
papers.
doesn't, but
Yeah.
it doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't help the ratepayers that, you know, they could have learned through that article
Yeah,
instead of.
instead of paying the 2.5%, they're saving 3%. So I mean.
Well, they're
that's a
getting,
win-win.
they're getting the convenience of plus the 3%, and we're saving that expense.
Okay,
Well,
if they choose not to use a credit card, but let's say they come in and pay cash, do they get the 3% if it's?
No,
It's gotta be ACH.
because we're trying to save on staff too,
Okay,
because cash takes staff time too.
okay,
And it's,
well, it's all online, you just fill out the form and you're good to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or come in. and-
Yeah, we're coming in and it's all, we'll walk you through the process.
Okay, well, spread the word then.
You want to see this more of a pass around.
and you know, it's, when you say we were paying that, it was the ratepayers were paying. So we were all paying the fees for
Collectively,
the
right?
few people that were using the credit cards.
Yeah.
So then all the ratepayers had to pay that fee essentially, because it's absorbed in the overall operating expense. So I mean, it saves us all
Yeah.
the ratepayers.
It just helps us keep rates stabilized. We don't have to raise rates just to cover that extra $17,000 a year that's going out the door with no real benefit to us. So,
Yeah, not to anybody really, right?
Well, if you're getting miles for traveling, it was. a
Oh,
benefit
yeah.
For that.
But you take 17,000 there, you take 18,000 on interest, and by watching these things, you make a difference to that bottom line. And ultimately helps us have no increase or small increase if there is one. So,
So customers have a way of protecting themselves as well, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good thing, it's a win-win.
yeah, we never tried to make things difficult, even though the public perception is shame on us all the time, but. Speaking of that, number D or letter D, improving our perception. This is just informative. I'm not pushing this down with a plow. I just came in, a short story. I came into the house and the Princeton Public Utility bill was there unopened. I don't take care of that, Ann does. And I just took pause and I looked at it and I just saw negativity on it. And, you know, I was just looking at it broadly. So I was wondering how, if we just changed the wording a little bit to make it somewhat a little bit more smiley or friendly. And I'm just going to pass this around. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. In an ongoing effort from all of us to help improve our image, and I'm not saying we should pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'm just using some things that came into my mind as I was typing. Does Michelle? Oh, so things, I'm just going to board these out. City of Princeton Community Utility Services, City of Princeton Community Utilities, City of Princeton Community Utilities. I just have a different font there. Community of Princeton Public Utilities. It says more than just Princeton Public Utilities. I don't know what it says to you, what I just said, but I think it's more broader than just these guys in the utility office are upsetting us every month because we have to pay this utility bill, and it's so much more than a utility bill. And that's why we spent all the time color coding that bill, so we could try to explain to everyone that it's not just electric, it's water, sewer, fees, etc. So
Does the PUC go beyond city limits?
We do have some electric that's outside city limits.
See, that's my concern, if the name city of Princeton, and people might have the connotation that it's just within city limits, your services, I don't know.
You know, people, I mean, you have to, you know, I would say that anyone with, and I experienced this when I worked at the county, because the city of Princeton zip code via the US Postal Service actually covers 4 counties. And so at Mille Lacs County, you would get a call from, you know, someone who wants to pull a building permit or a real estate agent or whatever looking, and, you know, luckily through GIS, we know we can look up an address for the city of Princeton fairly quickly and say, yes, it's in Mille Lacs County or it's not. And then you go through and, you know, we go through the exercise or went through the exercise of saying, nope, that's not Mille Lacs County, that's, you know, then you do a Google search and you find out it's in Isanti County or it's in Benton County or it's in Sherwood County. You know, so, I mean, people identify, I mean, I listen to Shauna and Mary Lou all the time. I mean, we got a half a dozen calls this morning before noon and, hey, I want to pull a permit for a pole barn. Can you tell me if I'm in the city limits or not? I mean, so people do recognize, I mean, that's why the Pulse of Princeton acknowledges that we have, that the city in the global sense of the world encompasses more than just those people that live in city limits.
I don't know, discussion, you guys?
Well, just a couple of things. First of all, Rick, you shouldn't be getting paper bills anyway. I don't know why you brought that up. You should be getting electronic and we have this problem. Secondly,
This is for another building.
Oh.
It's not for Rick and Ann. We are ACH,
oh, sure.
but we can't use the 3% because we don't get your water.
You know, I think Rick and I were speaking about this just before, and I think the emphasis here is really on community. And this sounds right, but it's like your favorite neighborhood utility bills. No, I think we could make it, and I don't know, I'm afraid that if we put the word city on it, they're going to think they're going to another go from city council or something. So I think we would be cautious about that. But, you know, in everything that we could take, we should try to emphasize that this is your local utility. And I don't know that you're ever going to get away from the, oh, Jesus, in the bill response. I mean, it's the reality of what it is. But I think in all of our communication with the regulators, we try to make them as welcome as we possibly can. What the wording is, Care Bear sticker on it. I don't know what to do to get over that. But I think we just need to be mindful of that. His reaction to it. We saw Ann's path bills there. It's not. It's just a bill. I don't know the answer, but I really thought of trying to communicate with our customers that this is your local. Us.
Yeah, it's not just electric. And I went a step further in my daydreaming about this. It wouldn't be right to just put our local on it, utility local. That wouldn't be right because it's more than that. Nor would it be right to put the city's local on that, because that just refers to the city. So either one of those logos would be accurate on that envelope, but something in between, rather than just Princeton, which is our city utility, is, I think it could be done better. It doesn't have to be done today, but I just wanted to bring that up for discussion. It's not a big deal to change it. Just I would hope people would look at it as a broader stroke, that there's more in this envelope than just my electric bill. That's kind of my goal. And again, user friendly kind of thing. Dan, any comments?
Well, I don't see it. I don't see why that'd be a problem. Put both logos on it, you know, just so people do know it's a bill from the city sewer. And
If you put both, that's not a problem, but just put one or the
just
other.
one more,
Doesn't
like
fit.
I said, just one more broader stroke, one more reminder that this is two entities. It's one bill. Besides the way we can, you know, I don't know how that would be. Is there a photo?
It's just three first.
Or even on, maybe even on the bill itself. You know, could have two logos.
Just in a single color text.
Yeah.
Keep constant.
Right.
And it is our office, it's return. You're looking at the return address, right? When you say the.
Well, that's who it's from.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's to the office. It's to a physical utilities facility, which is by its weight. Right?
That's
Except you're looking at
the one I saw was just said on the top left corner, Princeton Public Utilities. That was it.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so then if the,
I mean, one of those things would be a lot cheaper for printing, just in black and white, you know.
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm just looking for that softer touch on it. It just seems to be Scott,
Could you put a little message on the, I mean, if Chris want to do that, does a little message on the envelope of something,
Like a tag.
yeah, community, whatever, something to that effect would be something that could be, and not confuse people, I guess, with trying to put both on there and that aspect of for the, where it's got to go back to that part.
Because I think the issue is, like you said, it's on the owl. So because we eat this all the time, somebody moves out, they get their mail forwarded, it's gotta come back somewhere. And we're a small town, it was always good enough to just put President Public Utilities on it, because postmaster knows who we are, it just goes in our mailbox. If we change that, I mean, there is some functionality to it, that's why it's there. We're aware of. What happens when that mail is undeliverable? Where does it go?
brought up for discussion. Kathy, did you have any thoughts on it? You see it all the time.
All my bills come like that.
Yeah. All right, well, we can maybe talk about it later. If people have interest in it or not. Under new business. Cogeneration small power production.
Yes, sir. Memorandum 22-10. If the commission recalls, each year at our first meeting of the year, we are required to update our cogeneration and small power production tariff, which we did do this year. What's associated with that tariff is a lot of rules and data and all sorts of other things. MMUA has been working on updating the governing rules for that. And the reason is a couple of different things. One is when this stuff first came out, I want to say it was 2016, 2018, I can't remember when it first came out with this stuff. There were the commission at the time adopted again, it's called the Rules Governing the Interconnection of Cogeneration and Small Power Production Facilities, updated the tariff, as well as the annual filings. And at that time, what was approved and put into our policy was the interconnection rules. It was very specific. And one of the things, just in terms of good governance, is a good policy to do is, rather than putting all of the rules into the policy, you do it by reference, which means you refer to the state's governing rules. So that way, when the state updates their rules, you don't have to do anything. It's just automatic because you're referring to the state's website. So it just makes things a lot cleaner. In addition, there have been various projects around the state that have come up, different concerns, some ambiguities that were in the rules, that some utilities had a couple of issues they want to talk about. For example, make it very clear that we as a utility are not giving up our right to serve our customers. The reason I say it that way is there have been a couple of providers who have come in, and rather than going through as an IPP, which is an independent power producer, and do it on a wholesale market so that we can meet our SIMPA purchasing. They come in and say, okay, this customer, they have a little woodshed with a light bulb. Great, we're going to pop in a 40 kW solar system and get retail rate for everything we put in excess of what the customer is using. So it's really, and then put the account in the IPP's name, which means they then get it. We have the cogeneration and the small power producer tariffs are in place because we want to give our customers the ability, if they want to put on a solar system to meet their needs, they can. It's not, however, a way to circumvent the IPP process to get retail for really what should be reimbursed at a wholesale rate. So, but the original language had some ambiguity. MMUA actually worked with the co-ops on all of this as well, because we were learning from their experience. It was a great way for the communities and co-ops to collaborate, and came up with these new changes. I did include the whole thing in your packets, and I formatted it to fit in with kind of our standard document formats that we have. So you'll be able to see the full rules, which go through definitions, go through requirements, explains what reporting is going to be done each year. Rather than having 4 schedules, we put out 3 schedules. And like I said, it's actually a lot cleaner. And then in addition, did provide with an updated contract for cogeneration small power production facilities. So if approved, we would then use this as our new contract for any applicants who want to install a solar distributed generation facility. So this just codifies a lot of those rules, make sure that it's clear that we're revising the tariff, that we're adopting the Minnesota Municipal Interconnection Process of 2022. And again, we're doing that by reference, which means if the state updates that or MMUA updates that, those changes will just automatically filter through to our customers. And then adopt the new schedules. If that makes sense, my recommendation is that the commission repeal the existing rules, which includes schedules 1, 2, 3, and 4. That the commission then adopt resolution 22-03, which is the new rules for governing the interconnection of cogeneration and small power production facilities, and then adopt for this year resolution 22-04, which includes schedules 1, 2, and 3. So I guess with that, it's a lot of technical jargon that's in there. That's what the intent of the change is.
Yeah, I understand. I'd like to make a motion.
Do you have
Is that recommendation?
If you could, the first one would be to repeal the
You
existing.
can't do it all at once.
I think we have to repeal and then adopt.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to repeal the rules governing the interconnection of cogeneration and small power production facilities with Princeton Public Utilities Commission.
And schedules 1, 2, 3.
Current cogeneration and small power production tariff and schedules 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Alright,
Aye.
Okay.
Carries.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 22-03, which adopts the new rules governing the interconnection of cogeneration and small production facilities. You want 2 motions?
I need that as 2,
Two.
otherwise you're gonna have to approve the rules again next year.
That's my motion.
I'll second.
Been a first and a second. Any other discussion?
Just a clarification quickly, that is 22-03 and 22-04.
No, just 22.
The middle paragraph. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
The motion to adopt resolution 22-04, which adopts the cogeneration and small power production tariff with schedules 1, 2, and 3.
And a second. Any discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Alright, so,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's really more housekeeping, but we just want to make sure we have everything in place.
I started reading all that, went, no.
Well, I recall going through it. Was it last year or the year before we?
It's understandable.
I just have a quick question. You're
Yes.
going from 4 down to 3 for your scheduling?
Correct.
Okay, so what are the 4 and what are the 3?
So, well, the big thing is, so schedule 1 is still the same. Let me look at this. So schedule 1 basically remained the same, which is the actual tariff itself. That defines if for customers that do net energy billing, what the retail rate is for each of our service types. And or if they decide to go through a different process, what the avoided costs are for each of those. So schedule 1 is the actual tariff.
Okay.
The old schedule 2 was actually more about the rules. That was the whole definition of what the interconnection process is. That has now been taken out and addressed through the rules governing the process that we have, that the commission just adopted now.
Okay, so it's just number 2.
Correct, the old number 2 went away.
Okay.
So the old number 3 became the new number 2, which is the wholesale supply rates.
Okay.
And then schedule 3 is just a reference to that interconnection process, which does it through reference by referring to the Minnesota Technical Interconnection and Interoperability Requirements, the TIIR, as adopted by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission on January 22nd, 2020. Again, if the PUC, the State Public Utilities Commission, changes the technical interconnection requirements, because we're doing it by reference, those rules will propagate to us automatically, and the commission doesn't necessarily have to take any action at that point. We just continue to do with whatever the new codes are.
Okay.
It's a good way to think about it.
So basically, we're just taking out the 2 and moving them down.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Trying to figure out what was going and what was staying.
No, it-
Now I know.
It gets complicated.
Yeah, it does.
All right, item B.
Yes, sir. I always think it's a good time. It's always worthwhile to pause and reflect. We have done a tremendous amount of work, I think, at the utilities and at the commission. And so it's always important to me that we kind of document it. And I think of it as a year in review activity, just to highlight a lot of the activities that has taken place. So in your packets, I had actually done this 2 years ago, and then last year, there was so much going on that we ended up not being able to finalize the year in review, but I was able to finalize for 2021. And what you'll see is just for your reference, just kind of a month by month breakdown of what the commission did at each of its meetings. So you can kind of go back and just remember the things that we talked about, the things that we worked on, what was approved, what was adopted. And then also kind of going through each of our staff groupings to again, just like I said, I think it's good for folks to realize that, even for the public that might be watching, it's kind of like an iceberg. I mean, you kind of see, 10%, the high level things that are going on. It's always important to recognize staff that aren't here, the staff that Jeremy supervises, the staff that Scott supervises, the office staff, and the work that they do every day to keep this place running. I think that's really important to acknowledge that. So it goes through and talks about in the water department, last year they were working on conversions. They have completed 30% of those conversions. So even though we've been stalled out, we still have a significant chunk that we have accomplished. They conduct routine testing of the water system for MDH. They replace the actuators in treatment plant 1. They do the fall flushing. They replace failed, replace a cooling fan, a failed PLC, repairing valve boxes, sealing deep wells when they find them, doing hookups for new customers, taking the water tower out of service in the wintertime to help the system operate better, working on the wellhead protection plan, plowing around the fire hydrants, pumping those down, working with specific customers and making sure that all 3 towers are continually operating. On the electric side, significant tree trimming efforts were completed last year, upgrading our facilities to LEDs, joining in with first responders for emergency situations, assisting with the new scoreboard at Solheim, and installing 3 new poles at Mark Park, removing primary, doing some cleanup, interconnecting those residential customers that are installing solar PV systems, installing the 2 EV chargers. The electric department did fully convert to AMI last year, so that was a huge accomplishment for them. Continuing to convert sections of the system to underground, annexing the Princeton Business Park, updating the GIS system. We did have that break-in last year, coordinating with the police department on addressing that. Getting DGR in here to do an electric system study and developing a 10-year capital improvement plan. In the power plant, conducting our monthly runs, working with Caterpillar to repair the leaks that we had on the Unit 7 intervals, which was a huge activity. Conducting annual boiler and pressure vessel inspections for our insurance needs, updating and streamlining the GenLog process, which is a monthly reporting that we have to do so that power operators can now do the monthly tracking spreadsheets instead of the general manager doing that. So we've automated and streamlined some of our data collection. We did operate for 3 days in February for a total of 36 hours to support the grid during Winter Storm Uri, repairing a water leak, rebuilding a water pump, rebuilt a ballast tank, did a compressed air leak survey to minimize operating costs, had an audit conducted by the MPCA and addressed all of their issues to their satisfaction, installed new batteries and chargers in the power plant, replaced the circulation pump, new filtration system, generation audits by MNUA. We finally completed the spill prevention and control countermeasure plan, our SPCC plan, retubed the boiler, and worked with League of Minnesota Cities as well on an audit of our safety and record keeping. For buildings and facilities, we did property appraisals on our for our property liability insurance. We conducted our annual roof inspections. Again, some facility conversions to LEDs. We converted the back conference room to a smaller conference room with office space for IT. And the old IT workstation has now been converted to a billing room to make it easier and faster to process our monthly bills. We redesigned and paved the diesel tank filling areas as part of our slope containment efforts and winterized all facilities last fall. On the administrative side, we were still navigating a very difficult COVID-19 pandemic. Handled the monthly commission meeting minutes, implemented lawn sprinkling restrictions upon DNR notice of the drought warning, modified our application for services so they can be completed electronically to help reduce office traffic and free up staff to work on other projects. Evaluated and updated health insurance benefits for staff, agreed to a 3-year rental agreement with the Historical Society for the use of this room. Had our health insurance broker come in to give insurance presentations to staff. Renewed our property liability insurance as well as our workers' comp policy, updated the employee handbook, identified and hired a third party to do our credit checks for deposits. That was signed in, signed that agreement with Online Utility Exchange, upgrade several workstations with Adobe Acrobat Pro to help create better PDFs for commission packets, customer education pieces, and document management, continued our social media presence, helped the city with evaluating sewer revenue collection options, and began a review of annexation options for the South Industrial Lot. In accounting and finance, and a lot of this is just Kathy, processing all invoices bi-monthly, providing accounts payable to the commission, monitoring bank accounts daily, recorded interest received on bank accounts, CDs, investments, checking interest rates, balancing sales tax accounts and filing returns monthly, completing the inventory, balancing books monthly, working with auditors, producing the trial balance income statement, balance sheets monthly, adjusting the rate stabilization funds and adding that to the cash reserve for the commission. Monthly financial reports are now shared electronically, processing payroll semi-weekly and doing the tax deposits. Developing RFP for auditing services, and we did select a new auditor for the next 3 years. Updating our year-end procedures to allow for accurate income statements in the new year prior to audit completion, and invoicing property owners and contractors for new construction and connection fees and construction charges both within the city for both commercial and residential. So you should just put Kathy's name on that one. That's a lot of what she knows. Billing rates, we've just updated the tariff again, discontinued the LCR program. We're continuing to adapt power managers to work more effectively with our AMI system. Did cross training, creating billing manuals, documenting our process so that folks can help each other more and more. automated a lot of our monthly consumption reports to automatically detect customers that should be switched to different rate schedules. Also automated our solar subscription monthly credit spreadsheet and our car wash sewer charges spreadsheet. Just a lot of streamlining and storing things on a network so that they can be shared and utilized by multiple staff. I don't want to take up a lot of time. Obviously, the 3% ACH credit was approved, and the credit screening process. We process about 2,800 bills each month. 2,300 of those are paper bills, 550 are electronic, and 105 of our customers get both. We process about 40 new customer applications each month, just with the turnover that we get. For customer relations, listen to the billing inserts that we've done. We published 2 connectors, promoting ACH, reorganized the lobby for tripping hazards, modified our internal procedures to accommodate changes in the cold weather rule. That was another major activity we had to do last year. Send out freeze up letters to help people know if they're at risk for freeze up based on past history. Did have to work with the Minnesota Attorney General and some questions raised by a customer regarding the cold weather rule. Handed out free light bulbs to our customers, reformatted our service rules to match other documentation. Did celebrate Public Power Week. We fielded a total of 2,800 customer calls in 2021, which is an average of 12 calls per day. That's what we see in the office. Actually, I looked back in 2019, we did 3,500. So we actually saw a 17% reduction in the phone calls that we're receiving. And I think a lot of that is because we're directing more people to the website to get the applications for service electronically, to see what our service rules are, to see what the commission is working on, to see our audit. So we're putting more and more information out there that people can just access on their own time, which I think is helpful. On the IT side, we've upgraded the servers. We continue to participate in cybersecurity threats. We're utilizing the disconnect meters for non-payment situations now, which avoids staff having to go out on location. We've upgraded the Yukon server to 2019 to better utilize their AMI program. We've upgraded, installed a power plant SCADA system, repaired the communications of the scoreboards displaying accurately. We were holding monthly internal AMI worker meetings to coordinate that integration. We implemented a data backup process and can now verify backups on a daily basis. Greg's been setting up the monthly EV needs for these commission meetings. He's upgraded the switches for the IT network. And we did add in a 4th gateway to provide redundancy and load balancing for our AMI system. Greg Bergman and I still meet semi-annually with CW Technologies to review our operations, disaster recovery plans, and strategic alignment between security, infrastructure, communications, and business management. We have a 5-year IT capital improvements plan to make sure that we keep our equipment up to date. We employed an endpoint detection and response efforts to increase our cybersecurity and creating a corporate calendar so that staff can more easily share information internally. On the legal and regulatory side, we streamlined our streetlight inventory process. We completed all of our federal reports, both at the state and federal level for DOE, MPCA, MPUC. Completed our DNR, MPAR's water report, published our 2020 drinking water report and sanitary survey. Created host site agreements for the EV charger installation. Filed our hazardous waste permit, did our scoping 2 meeting for the protection plan, and developed and released an RFP for technical services on the wellhead protection plan, which we selected WSP for that. On the safety side, we completed APPA safety data report. We participated in monthly MMUA safety trainings, which were both virtually and in person, talking about such things as workplace safety, drug and alcohol awareness, ergonomics, administered random drug testing for staff and CDLs, replaced expired medical kits through our facilities, reviewed our safety management program. We have an internal safety committee meeting that meets on a regular basis, and also conducted our annual federal motor carrier safety administration clearinghouse period for employees and CDLs. That's another regulatory requirement we have to do. And that's just what we did internally. Then in the document, it talks through our stakeholder engagement, the work we did with the city of Princeton, the work we did with MWA, the work that we did with SIMPA, APPA, and just the community at large, working on the scholarship, the DC fast charger, we did a ribbon cutting there, working with the Historical Society on the telegraph that was put in last year, doing the holiday decorations in town. working with the chamber on several different events, participating in the Rum River Festival Parade, promoting our energy efficiency rebate programs. To give you an example on that, in 2020, our final results. So this is 2020. I don't have the full 2021 numbers. We had a savings of over 1 million kilowatt hours, which is 1.9% of our annual energy sales. The state requirement is 1.5, so we exceeded that. Our low income expenditures was $23,000, which is 1% of residential gross operating revenues. State requirement is 0.2, so we did fine on that. And our total spending, which is not just us, that's SIPA as well, $189,000, which is 2.8%. State requirement is 1.5, so we exceeded all those. Our 2021 Airline program savings, our participant, we had almost 2,200 residential customers participating. Those are the comparator graphs that are on our bills. We have to do that as part of our DSM requirements. That saved our customers approximately 328,000 kilowatt hours, or 12.6 kilowatt hours per customer. We celebrated Public Safety Day with the city on the 11th. Again, we continue to promote the Salvation Army Speed Share program. We did the Rebate program, I think last month, which had set a new record with 2,200 LEDs sold in our community, and sponsored the Light Up Princeton event last year. For staff, we continue to conduct annual staff reviews and updating job descriptions to make sure that everything's current. We have staff attending various education activities, MMUA's electric design workshop, the MMUA's P&O conference, a first line supervision program. And Jeremy joined us last year as our electric superintendent. On the water power plant side of things, again, Scott's is our water and power plant superintendent. We did hire a new water operator, and his staff did attend the annual water and wastewater technical conference. In the office, our office staff attended virtually the Power Managers Conference to make sure we're keeping up to date on our billing software. We did have a long time CSR retire. We hired a new CSR. Kathy joined the Minnesota Government Finance Officers Association to help us with networking and making sure we're always implementing best practices. And I've been participating in the Chamber of Commerce's leadership series. Again, I did take a little bit of time with that, but I think it's important for the commission to recognize everything you guys did and everything that the staff's been doing. So there's no loss growing on us. That's for sure.
Sounds like a very busy year, and I'm more out just listening to it.
Yeah, we like to move it.
Yeah, there's only one question I have.
Yes.
You switch over to the AMI electric system. What's AMI?
So it's advanced metering infrastructure. In the old days, you have to go to a meter, you would read that up and you would write the number down to a meter. And then the next evolution was called an AMR system, which was an automatic meter reading system, and it was radio frequency, so it was RF. So you could basically drive down the road and intercept radio signals to read the meter and put that in the billing system. But that's now has become obsolete. The new system is called an AMI, and being an advanced metering infrastructure, what it is we network the entire community. So we have gateways up. Think of it like a cell phone network. So we can read the meters from the office. So if we had water done, we wouldn't even be sending out meter readings. We can access those meters on a very regular basis. So a couple things, and the guys kind of alluded to it earlier, it also gives us feedback as to how the system's operating. So what happens is before, if we would only read meters once a month, you get 12 data points. Beyond that, we have no idea what was going on. Now, we can toggle these meters every 15 minutes. What that means is these guys sometimes now know that there's an outage before we get one phone call. So it can help start to speed up your response rates. We can start to triage what's happening. So if somebody calls up and there's an outage, in the old days, we didn't know if it was them and only them, or if it was an entire city block. It's just they're the only ones who call. Now we can go on the system and run a report and say, okay, how many meters are on? Then you can start looking at which feeder line is it on. You know, are we looking at something massive, or is it something that just one or two guys can take care of? On the water side, Scott had mentioned this in his report. We can sit there, for most people, they don't use a consistent amount of water every 15 minutes. We'll sleep, you're not using water. If you see a constant consumption, it usually means you've got a leak. What they found was somebody had inadvertently left open an outside faucet. And it got flagged on our system. Now, in the old days, we wouldn't have known about that until we went out and read a meter, and all of a sudden they used 200,000 gallons.
Yeah.
They found it, and it was about 70,000.
Is that what you guys were talking about earlier? That maybe it was frozen?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's giving us a lot more feedback on the system, so that we can not just read the kilowatt hours, but as we're seeing with our capital improvements plan, what kind of voltages are we seeing throughout the community? You know, we're getting a lot of data now as to the overall health. And it's really telling us how our system is. It's a phenomenal evolution in meter reading for utilities. And I think we've only scratched the surface. So we're going to continue to explore that and implement more and more services, I think, for our customers as we go into that.
I like that. I like that when a few years ago, our wastewater treatment plant switched over to where they could get things on their phones at home, so they knew what was going on, and we have to be on site.
Yeah.
That was very exciting, so I'm very excited about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Totally understand now.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith. It's
I
very, very informative.
just think it's kind of interesting, it's kind of a side note here, but when Mr. Erickson came on board, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like an awful long time ago. It just didn't, so long time. It really wasn't that long ago, but one of your stated objectives, if I remember correctly, was to improve perception of the community of first and public utilities. So now we put a fairly significant change in our billing policy with this ACH, this discount, and it comes to pass with relative ease, and people just adopt it. And part of that, I think one of my goals with the first one was to get our internet stuff a little bit more interactive. So between the efforts that we have made, concerted efforts, I should say, to make people aware of all the good things that are going on here, and the electronic side being so much more accessible, we've made this utility a lot more open. And I think it's paying off in the way that we're received in the community, in the way people are paying their bills, in the way, even though some people don't like the look of our envelope. I think it's been a good year. I think that I wanted to say that at the end of your presentation. We should give ourselves a little pat on the back for the way things have gone this year. We've gotten a lot accomplished, and here.
Yeah, great comment. It's true. It's true, and it's your leadership was there too.
Well, that's not what I'm going for, but you understand what I mean. This has been, if you ever wanted to point to a team effort, I could say here, look at all we have for this team. It's been awesome. So, it hasn't been without hiccups, but it's been a good year.
Thank you for serving.
Okay.
Thank you to all of you for serving.
Happy to do so. With that being said, I would look for the motion for adjournment.
I would make that motion.
Any other discussion or?
No, hold on a second.
Okay. All that said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.